Hello everyone, I'm Brad and welcome to Mediocre Models. For this one I'm going to show how I paint just regular standard British Infantry. It's a really easy scheme. Unfortunately I don't have any of the new British Infantry sculpts. I'm just using the old ones here. I had a couple of models left over. So this can basically be used on the other ones, the newer ones. The only thing is I've got a couple of colours that I won't use, but specifically gore, grunter, fur. I would use that for any leather straps on the weapons, but he doesn't have any, and he didn't have any, so that'll just be gore, grunter, fur for that. And for this particular model, I did his webbing with the skeleton horde, and then once that was dry I went over with plague bearer flesh, the same how I do some of my other infantry, just to give it that greenish khaki tinge to it. But I'm not going to do that on this model. Instead I'm going to try and do it a different way. I'm going to just do it with just a straight green, just to see how that looks. So that'll be a new trial model. And another thing is, for any that just have the regular steel Brody helmets, I would use castellan green for that. But this one doesn't have it. He's got the camo netting on his helmet, so I won't use castellan green for that. But that's what I would use for any of them with the regular steel helmets. So the model is undercoated with corax white, and I'll get set up and we'll start with the first paint. So for the first paint I'm going to use wyldwood, and this is just going to go straight onto his uniform. It'll go all over his pants and his jacket. When using this, if you can, try and avoid putting it onto his gaiters as well as onto the webbing itself. If you can avoid doing that, it'll save you a bit of cleanup. But if you do get it on, it's not a big issue. You can just come back later on after this step is finished with the corax white and just tighten it up. So yeah, it'll basically go all over his pants and all over his jacket. So I'll continue on and finish him off, and once all the wyldwood's finished we'll come back onto the next paint. The wyldwood's all over the uniform now. It's still drying, but as you can see it leaves a nice brown look to the uniform. The next colour I'll move on to will be Creed Camo, and that will be for the camo netting on his helmet, and I'll do it all over his helmet. So just putting the Creed Camo over his helmet. That'll just be for the ones with the camo netting. If you're painting your British and you want them maybe in the Italian campaign or Italian theatre of war, instead of using Creed Camo, you might want to use Skeleton Horde just to give it yellow webbing. Choice is up to you, but I'll just go with the Creed Camo for a European look. And that's basically it for the Creed Camo. The next colour I'll move on to will be Black Templar, and I'll be using that on his boots. Once again, if you try and be careful, avoid getting it onto the gaiters. and then once the black Templar is on, I'll let that dry, and then once the model is fully dry, I'll go through with corax white and fix up any areas on his webbing that I went over with the wyldwood. And if you have any models which have rifles, which make up most of your army, I would also go through and fix up any areas of wood on the rifles, just so when we go into the next couple of colours, it's nice and easy to do. I finished with the Black Templar, then I went through with corax white and fixed up any mistakes I made on the webbing and the gaiters. Now the next colour I'm going to move on to will be militarum green, and I'm going to put this all over his webbing and his gaiters. I don't know what this will look like. This is a first for me. So hopefully it'll look okay. But depending on how it looks when I eventually get around to doing my own British Army, I may end up doing it the other way with my first model. So it'll just go all over his backpack, all over his webbing, his pouch for his entrenching tool, belt, the water bottle, and the spare magazines for the Bren gun, and of course his gaiters. So I'll continue on with that, and then we'll come back for the final colours. The militarum green is all done and still drying a little bit. I don't mind the look of this. It's alright, but I think I prefer the look of this webbing better, at least for these models. The next colour I would go on to would be snakebite leather, and that would be for any wooden areas on the weapons, but he's got a Sten gun, so doesn't really have any wooden areas on it. Yeah, so it'll be snakebite leather for any of the wooden areas. And then the next paint I'll go on to, and it'll be the last one, will be Guilliman flesh, and that'll just go onto all of his flesh. So this is just Guilliman flesh, and this just goes straight onto his flesh, all over his hands. Just his face as well. Now, if you want, you can let this coat dry, put another coat on, and that'll make the skin darker. You might want to do that for those who are in the Italian campaign. But I'll just do one coat for this one. And that's the Guilliman flesh done, and that's it for our contrast paints. The only thing left to do now will be to get leadbelcher and paint all the metallic areas on the model. And then it'll just be our final shades. So I'll let the Guilliman flesh dry, and then we'll come back with the leadbelcher and continue on with them. Now the Guilliman flesh has dried, I'll move on to leadbelcher, and this will just be for all the metal parts on the weapons, so whether that be the SMG or Bren gun or the rifles. For any belt buckles at the front. I'll also put it on the clips for his backpack, and I'll also do the entrenching tool handle silver as well. If you don't want to do this silver, if you want it to be wooden, I'd suggest painting it with snakebite leather just to make it stand out from the rest of the model. So I'll finish this off, and then it'll just be the shades left. Now the leadbelcher is dry, the next paint I'll move on to will be Null Oil, and this will just go over all the metallic areas. So it'll go all over his weapon. Nice big lot on there, really darken it down. I like the look of this. I know some people don't, they prefer to do the blackened metal, but I like this look. And it'll also go into his belt buckle, clips on his backpack, and if you did the entrenching tool handle metal, it'll just go all over that as well. Just darken it all down. And then once that's all dry, we'll move on to the final paint, and he will be finished. The Null Oil is all dry now, so the next paint I'll go on to will be Agrix Earthshade, and this will be all over coat over the entire model. For this particular one, I'll try and avoid putting it onto his Sten gun. Same as those who have a Bren gun. I'll try and avoid putting it onto the main bulk of the metal. If you have any's with rifles, it'll basically be trying to not put it onto the end and where the main breech is. This will just be an all over coat over the entire model, just to really give it that nice, dirty, worn, battered feel to them, as if he's been fighting through the bocage and hedgerows of France, across the fields of Normandy. So just really give him a nice look, I think. When putting it on, just be careful there's no major pooling anywhere. If there is, you can just use your brush to absorb it up or spread it around to other areas. So I'll let him dry, and then we'll come back and look at the finished product, and yeah. The Agrax Earthshade is basically fully dry now, and this is how he looks at the end. Not going to do any highlights or anything like that. He's basically all finished, just needs to do his base and he's done. I really like the look of this worn, weathered look to them. Makes them feel like they've been in combat for a while. I do this with all my models, have that look to them. As for the webbing, I think eventually when I get to doing my British Infantry, I'll probably do them this way, with the sort of green khaki look to their webbing, instead of the actual just straight green It looks okay, but I prefer the look of this, I think. So yeah, that's basically it for British Infantry, and that's how I'll probably end up painting mine. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.